Hey everyone, this is video one in our brand new series on Michael Singer's Living Untethered called Conscious Awareness, coming up right after this. Hey everyone, so today we're going to dive right in. This is lesson one on the series on Michael Singer's book, Living Untethered, New York Times bestselling author. And today's video is entitled Conscious Awareness, which is the title of this section in Michael Singer's book. It's the first section in his book. So let's jump right in. Now, basically, I talk about this in my introduction, but just to make it clear, the point here is to kind of give my sort of snippets and insights on the chapters that Michael Singer writes. Okay, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Maybe if I have an insight that I feel I can add that maybe Michael Singer didn't say, perhaps that's something that I'll throw in. But basically, this is all Michael Singer's material. I'm just here to highlight it and to summarize what I found to be the most relevant points in the various chapters. Okay, and what I've done is, instead of going through each chapter individually and having a separate video for that, at least as of the date of this recording, that may change in the future. But as of now, my intention is to do a video per section. So for example, if I open up the book here, like I said, the first section is called Conscious Awareness. Now, in Conscious Awareness, Michael Singer breaks it out into different chapters or different sections. So he's got awareness of self, the conscious receiver, living inside, the three-ring circus, exploring the nature of things. And what I'm doing is I'm compiling it all into one video as opposed to going through it chapter by chapter. In the future, maybe I will go through the chapter by chapter synopsis, but for now I'm doing it section by section so that we can keep this to less videos that are packed with more content. Okay, so to jump right in, the first point that I jotted down here is that Singer challenges us. He asks you, the reader, essentially, or you, the watcher of this video, how do you feel about how life is unfolding? And I would guess that for many of you watching this, the reason why you came to this video is because things may not be unfolding in the way that you had hoped, or the way that you want things to unfold, or you're not happy, or there's discontentment, or you're looking for more. And that's normal, that's natural, okay? This is not said in a judging or critiquing way. That's certainly what got me to be reading the book, okay? So the reality is, as Michael Singer is going to talk about more, many of us, if not all of us, in a certain sense, are suffering in that we want more, we want different, we're not accepting reality, okay? So that's the first question that Singer poses to you, the reader, to really challenge yourself, ask yourself, how do you feel about how life is unfolding? And what he says is that when we have a complaint about how life is unfolding, what that is resistance, okay? And I'm highlighting the word resistance. That's resistance to what is. And there's a lot of gurus, if you will, famous authors. Byron Katie is one who comes to mind. She wrote the New York Times bestseller, Loving What Is. The idea of, there's Stephen, I'm forgetting his name now. He wrote the Legend of Bagger Vance. Stephen Pressfield comes to mind. He also talks about the idea of resistance. Tons and tons of literature on the idea of resistance. And what Singer says almost from the get-go of his book is that when we have complaints or not satisfied or content with how life is unfolding, which again is very normal and natural, okay? We're not judging ourselves here, but when we have that, that's resistance to what is. And what that resistance does is it creates tension and anxiety, okay? That resistance going against what's actually transpiring, boom, look about it. When you have resistance to something, it's going to create tension and anxiety. Okay, so we've got to find what Singer says is the antidote to resistance. And what's that secret antidote? It's not such a secret. It's called acceptance. Okay, that's accepting what is. Okay, only by accepting reality and not denying it can we live in harmony with the universe. And he gives the example of gravity. Okay, we can deny that gravity exists, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Or we can accept that gravity exists and we can work with it. We can build planes, we can fly, we can send people to the moon, whatever the case may be. So it's only by accepting reality as opposed to trying to fight it or trying to resist it, and by accepting it, we can live in that sort of tension-free environment. It sounds like a wonderful promise, sounds really too difficult to attain, but the masters have attained it. And I can speak from my personal life. I'm far from perfection in this. But certainly with more and more time, the more I do accept, the more I do find inner peace and inner happiness. okay, as opposed to the past where I would just kind of fight reality all the time, as opposed to sometimes now when I fall down. But all the time in the past, almost all the time in the past, it was creating a lot of tension and anxiety. Okay, so we have to learn to accept it. And he says also, that's something I highlighted as well, is that one must decide when to accept or resist. Okay, one must decide whether or not to accept or resist, meaning the underscore is on the word decide. It's a decision. Only you can make that decision. Nobody else makes that decision for you, and it is something you can decide. It's not predetermined. We may think it is. We may be conditioned to believe a certain thing is or has to be that way. Well, I was born into this family, or this is the way I am. I am who I am. A zebra doesn't change its stripes. All these sort of platitudes that are just not based on reality. We have the ability to choose. We make a decision. And that's what Singer says. We must decide if we're going to accept or if we're going to resist. But before we get into there, and this is really the whole kind of crux of his book, this idea of accepting reality and working with that. But before we get into that, it's important to know who the you is, Singer says. What do I mean when I say you? When I'm talking to you, the viewer of this video, who's you? Okay, I'm going to ask you that now. You can even stop this video and ponder that for a moment. Who are you? Who are you? Okay, so what Singer says here is that you cannot decide to accept something or to resist something until you know who the you is. Okay, so hopefully you've given that a little bit of thought. And Singer continues to elaborate on this concept of who you is. And what he does is he uses a brilliant example. So imagine you're holding up 3 photographs of yourself. One is taken of you when you're at the age, and Singer uses different ages probably, but one is of you at the age of 10, the other is at the age of 20, and the other is at the age of 40. Okay, just to take examples. Well, if you're 20 when you're watching this, and so you say when you're 5, 10, 15, whatever, that doesn't matter what age you actually are, but consider looking at different photographs of yourself. Is it still the same you? Of course it is. It's you when you were at a certain age, and it's you again when you were at a certain age, and you again. It's not like the you changed. Okay, so that's going to give us a bit of a bearing. And he takes this one step further. Think about your aging body. It's kind of related to the idea of different photographs, but think about your aging body. Was the you when you were born the same you when you're 100 years old? Of course. It's just your body around you that's changed, but the you in there is the same you, right? The you in that body never changes. The body around you changes. The body is youthful. The body is aging. The body is, God forbid, sick, whatever the case may be. But the you is always in that body that's going through that metamorphosis. He's got some other examples in the book, which I encourage you to read the book. And I hope you've already bought the book by the time you're watching this, or if you just stumbled upon this video and you haven't, I definitely encourage you. Again, we're talking about Living Untethered by Michael Singer. He's got others as well. The Untethered Soul was his first bestseller. I'm not sure if the Surrender Experiment came before that or not. All great books. By the time you're watching this video, he may have others out there. I know he's got various podcasts and videos on YouTube, and I'll try to remember to link to that in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. But the point is that he's got all sorts of other examples. He even talks about the idea of being with a different gender. Okay, imagine one day you woke up and instead of having a man's body, if you're a man, you had a woman's body, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. Okay, the you in there is still the same you. Okay, so he has all sorts of examples. I don't want to bog you down with those, but the point is to really understand that there's a you going on that transcends this whole idea of what your body is or what your age is. And really, he sums it up beautifully by saying it all comes down to the relationship with self. What does that mean? You are the subject. Okay, you're the one who's viewing. And what you're looking at is the object. Okay, so if you're looking at a photograph, okay, you are the subject. You're looking at a photograph. The photograph is the object. Okay, that's the subject-object relationship. And that's very important as Singer is going to continue to expound upon that idea. But just remember, there's that subject-object relationship. The you is always observing, or can always be observing. Sometimes we lose consciousness, as I'll get into more later, and Singer gets into. It's really a big part of the book. But for the moment now, just know that you are the subject, okay? You're the person who's doing the viewing, and the object is what you're viewing. You are viewing something. Now, yes, so what's it like to live in there? So when you're observing inside of you, right? When you're observing events that are happening or how you feel or what your body looks like, what somebody said to you, what you had for breakfast, whatever the case may be, how does it feel? And as we talked about from the beginning of the video, it doesn't always feel wonderful, does it? Oftentimes it feels terrible, awful. You know, you just don't feel right. It's not fair, whatever the case may be. Okay? Doesn't feel very good, is what he's saying. And the irony is that the reality is that it's really all beautiful. Okay? If you take, and he uses another poignant example, if you walk into a room and it's filled with garbage and there's, you know, pizza boxes everywhere, there's food everywhere, it's filthy, grimy. Is the room filthy, or is the room covered with filth? Okay, it's the same idea. It's really beautiful inside of you. It's beautiful around you. It's beautiful everywhere. And we're going to get into the different ideas of the three-ring circus, as Singer calls it, very soon, which makes up of what it is when I say what you're looking at. But we'll get into that soon. But for now, just know it's really always beautiful. The room is always nice. It's what you put inside of it, and then where you put that attention, that really gets you to lose track of what you're actually looking at, really losing consciousness. And what people try and do, Singer says, is instead of focusing on what it is that's causing you to not feel beautiful, or to not see the beauty, or to feel uncomfortable, or to be miserable, you're trying, and when I say you, I'm not lecturing you, I'm speaking to myself. I'm just speaking to you as the viewer. Okay, I'm sharing it with you. Okay, there's always something new to be uncovered, even though I've read this book so many times and I've watched his videos and I've actually met him. I went to his Temple of the Universe. Still, there's always so much to learn. And what he says is that people try and escape that. So they'll see that garbage in the room, and what's the solution to that garbage? Well, clean it up. Clean it up. Get rid of the garbage. Make the room beautiful again. But instead, people try and add more garbage to it, or they'll try and put like something sanitary on top of the garbage, but the garbage is still underneath it. Okay, it's a band-aid. They're not really dealing with what's underlying everything. And then he continues along with this theme, and he says, people often ask, why is it that some things that come in feel nice and some things don't, right? Sometimes I have a beautiful experience. Sometimes I have what seems like a miserable experience. Although, as we'll see, nothing really is a miserable experience until we give it that meaning, okay? Sure, there are bad things that happen. That's a whole other philosophical discussion that we'll get into in later videos. Okay, leave that aside for now. By the way, if you have any questions, you can always, you're watching this on YouTube, leave that in the comments below. I would love to do my best to address those, and feedback is always welcome. But also bear in mind, if you have any sort of cynicism that's stirring up inside of you, or you have any sort of judgments, or you have some burning questions, at least put it on the side for now. Put it on the blackboard, as a teacher of mine used to say. Put it on the blackboard. You can leave it in the comments, and we'll get to it. I'll do my best to get to it. Okay. But for now, let's just try and go along with the train of thought. So he says, what is it? Why is it that sometimes things come in? And what does that mean, things come in? I'll get to that shortly. Things come in and it feels nice. Sometimes it doesn't feel nice. And now I'm going to get to it, as I just said. What's going on is that there's a three-ring circus. Okay. What is it? What does it mean when I say things are coming in? Well, really, there's a three-ring, this is really funny, by the way. I've got a whiteboard over here that I wanted to draw notes on. And just as I'm talking about the idea of acceptance and not fighting reality, I found myself, and I was able to observe myself as a subject and object. I observed myself getting tense and annoyed. Why? Because I couldn't find my whiteboard marker. So this was a beautiful opportunity to be able to learn from that experience, to apply what I'm actually talking about now, just this moment. I literally could not find my whiteboard marker for the life of me. Okay, so there you go, in action. Now, getting back to what we were talking about, this idea of the three-ring circus. So what does it mean when we say three-ring circus? Well, what we're observing consists of three things. Just going to draw here. Number one, outside world. Outside world. Number two, I'll show this to you in a minute, our thoughts. My penmanship is not the greatest. And number three, our feelings and emotions. And I'm just going to make a little stick man as a type of clown. This is what I drew. How is that, folks? Okay, so he calls it the three-ring circus. Let's just write it here. Three-ring circus. Okay, we've got What we're viewing consists of what's coming in from the outside world. We're going to talk about all this more in depth. Our thoughts and our feelings and emotions. Three-ring surface. And there's our little stickman clown over there. As you can see, I'm a wonderful artist. And what Singer says is that it's a constant barrage that's overwhelming. And you're just trying to be okay. You're trying to swim against the current. So this thing's coming in, boom, like there was a natural disaster, COVID happened, boom, now you're trying to fight that. Like, no, it's not going to get to me. I'm still going to do my business. And nobody's, by the way, of course, nobody's saying you shouldn't make efforts to work with what's happening. And we'll get into that in later chapters as well. All this is very introductory, okay? But the point is that it's going to happen whether you like it or not. The outside world is going to come in. COVID is going to happen. Okay. And then the next one is our thoughts. So a lot of times a thought will come in like, you could be in a car driving, for example, take road rage. I wish you were dead. What? How can I say that? Well, why shouldn't I say it? Well, the guy's an asshole. Well, and your thoughts are constantly going in overtime. And then you're trying to fight it. Like, why do I have those thoughts? That's such a terrible thought to have, to say somebody should die. How can I even have that thought? Who am I? Who raised me? It's not my fault. It's my parents' fault. It's that guy's fault. The thoughts are constantly going on. Okay. And then what we talked about again, the third part of the three-ring circus, we talked about the outside world, right? Use the example of COVID. Then we talked about our thoughts. Okay. Think of road rage. And then we have our feelings and emotions, which are tied to thoughts, right? You have certain feelings that come up. So you may have a thought of somebody cut you off in traffic. Your feeling will be anger, this angry feeling. And then we don't want to have that angry feeling because it doesn't feel very nice. It sucks to be angry, right? So we're constantly barraged and feeling overwhelmed with this three-ring circus that's constantly going on. It's like a whirlwind constantly surrounding us. Three-ring circus, a Singer calls it. And that raises a question, Singer says, how much control do I have over my thoughts? Okay, and again, the same idea. He said before, how come some things make me feel good and some things don't? Same idea. Okay, why is it that some thoughts are great, feel great, and some thoughts suck? And what can I do about it? Can I do anything about it? All sorts of questions are arising. You may find yourself having all sorts of questions now as we're going through this. And that's great. Questions are great because that brings awareness and we can start to address these questions. So as Singer says, and we're going to talk about it as we go on in these videos, as Singer goes on in his book, you'll see that the answer is that what matters is you in there. That is what consciousness means. That is the path to freedom, to being untethered, hence the name of the book, Living Untethered. That's really what the focus of this book is all about and what our videos are all about, to bring out the lessons of Michael Singer in this book. Okay? It's what matters is you. It doesn't matter what's happening in the outside world. It doesn't matter what your thoughts are telling you. And it doesn't matter what your feelings and emotions are. When I say it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean it's not important. It means that doesn't have to control you. You can work with those outside world's thoughts, feelings, and emotions, not vice versa. You can be driving the bus and not them driving you in the bus. Right? As Singer says, those will always be there. But consciousness and surrender to resistance and letting go is what will allow you to not let them have dominion and domination over you. And what Singer says is that's called being established in the seat of self. And so with all of that, okay, with all those lessons that we just went through, what Singer does is he takes us on a journey now to go through that three-ring circus, to learn about them and then to learn how to live untethered in the face of those three-ring circuses, in the face of that three-ring circus. And the first part of that three-ring circus that we're going to cover, as Singer does, is the outside world, the world around us. So I hope you found that video insightful. Again, the credit goes to Michael Singer from his book, Living Untethered. I implore you to buy it. If you haven't bought it already, it's a fantastic book. You could probably get it on Audible, and if you want to listen to it, I don't know. I'm a little old school. I like actual physical books. I mark it up here. I've got all sorts of notes that I take. I actually have it autographed, by the way, autographed by Michael Singer, because I met him, as I said. I'm very proud of that. There's a spiritual ego, I guess. So we'll get into spiritual ego later. But the point is that I hope you found it insightful. It's very likely that you have a lot of questions, and hopefully those questions will continue to be answered as we go through the videos, but you're always welcome to leave those in the comment section below, assuming you're watching this on YouTube, and I will do my best to address those. I'm very grateful that you watched this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the channel. You'd not only be helping me, you'd also be helping yourself to not miss a future video. Your comments and feedback are always welcome, and don't forget to hit the actual like button on the video as well. Looking forward to seeing you at the next one.